30 miles outside Pike County, Alabama, in the depths of an abandoned coal mine, a sheriff's deputy is about to make a discovery that will shatter 45 years of silence. What he finds hidden behind a wall of rocks and timber will finally answer the question that has haunted an entire community since 1974. What happened to the Martinez twins? Two young women, one autumn evening, a 12-minute walk home that they never completed, and a killer who walked among the community for nearly half a century, hiding in plain sight. This is their story. October 2019, Sheriff Deputy Marcus Tanner responds to what should be a routine call. Teenagers trespassing in the old Blackwood mine. The mine has been closed since 1983, its entrances sealed with concrete and chain-link fencing. But time and nature have done their work, and local kids have found ways inside. Tanner expects to find empty beer cans and graffiti. Maybe issue some warnings and send the kids home with a lecture about safety. Instead, he notices something odd. A side tunnel blocked by a barrier that looks different from the others. Not the old concrete sealing the main entrance, but a deliberate construction of rocks and timber that doesn't match its surroundings. Between the stones, his flashlight catches something. Fabric. Weathered, discolored, but unmistakably man-made. Tanner calls for backup and carefully begins removing rocks from the barrier. And there they are. Two sets of human remains positioned side by side in a small alcove carved into the tunnel wall. Fragments of blue fabric still cling to the bones, the remnants of diner uniforms, and partially buried in the soil, a tarnished silver locket. The initials SM are still visible on its face. "Control, I need backup at the old Blackwood site," Tanner's voice echoes through the stone chamber. "Send the coroner." In that moment, Pike County's oldest mystery is about to be solved. But the truth, when it finally emerges, will be more disturbing than anyone imagined, because the person responsible isn't a stranger, isn't a drifter passing through, isn't some unknown predator from outside the community. The killer has been here all along, walking the same streets, shopping at the same stores, attending the same church services, living just 6 blocks from the victim's family home for 45 years. Before we dive deeper into this shocking case, I want to ask you to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Here at Crime Records, we're committed to bringing forgotten stories like this one back into the light. Every subscription helps us continue this important work. And if you appreciate what we do, please leave a like on this video. It helps more than you know. Now, let's go back to where it all began. October 17th, 1974, Pike County, Alabama. Pike County in 1974 is the kind of place where everyone knows everyone, or at least they think they do. Just over 25,000 people scattered across rolling farmland and small townships. A place where front doors stay unlocked and children play outside until the streetlights flicker on. Where the biggest excitement is Friday night high school football, and the most serious crime is usually a drunk driving arrest or a domestic dispute. The county seat is Troy, with its modest downtown square serving as the beating heart of local commerce and community life. Farmers gather at the coffee shop to discuss crop prices. High school students crowd into booths at the diner after games. Third shift workers grab late-night meals before heading to the mines or textile plants. The early 1970s have brought changes even to this quiet corner of Alabama. The civil rights movement has left its mark, though integration proceeds with the cautious pace typical of rural southern communities. The Vietnam War has claimed 17 of Pike County's sons and returned dozens more forever changed. Economic anxiety looms as manufacturing jobs begin their slow migration elsewhere, though the local coal industry still provides steady work. Dangerous work, but steady. Murphy's Diner sits at the intersection of Main and Walnut Streets. Its neon sign casts a warm glow over the sidewalk each evening, beckoning customers inside. The diner is more than just a place to eat. It's where the community gathers, where news spreads, where deals are made and gossip is exchanged over coffee and pie. And it's where Sarah and Rebecca Martinez work. The Martinez twins are impossible to miss in a town where Hispanic families are few and far between. Both stand 5'4" with glossy black hair that falls past their shoulders, warm brown eyes and smiles that light up the entire room. They're identical, but those who know them well can spot the differences. Sarah, older by 7 minutes, parts her hair on the left. She's the planner, the thinker, the one with quiet confidence. She dreams of becoming a nurse and has been carefully saving money for nursing school, keeping her earnings in a passbook savings account tucked in her dresser drawer. Rebecca, Becca to friends and family, parts her hair on the right. She's the outgoing one, the dreamer. She loves music, plays guitar at local church gatherings, and talks about moving to Nashville someday to pursue a music career. Those girls were inseparable, recalls Donna Wilkins, who managed Murphy's Diner in 1974. They worked the same shifts, shared a car, even dressed alike some days. But they had their own minds about things. Sarah was the planner, always thinking 3 steps ahead. Becca lived more in the moment. They balanced each other out perfectly. The twins' father, Robert Martinez, had moved his family from Arizona to Alabama in 1965 when the girls were 13 years old. He'd accepted a foreman position at Blackwood Coal Mine. Better pay, better benefits than anything he could find back west. Robert Martinez is the kind of man defined by quiet strength. Standing 5'8", with calloused hands and a weathered face that reflects years of outdoor work, he's built a reputation at the mine as a reliable foreman who puts safety above production quotas. He's respected by his crew and trusted by management. The Martinez family, Robert, his wife Maria, and their 4 children, have carved out a good life in Troy. They live in a modest home in a quiet neighborhood 5 blocks from downtown. They attend Mass at the Catholic Church every Sunday. The kids do well in school. They're part of the community now, accepted, welcomed. Everything is normal. Everything is good. Until October 17th, 1974. It's a Thursday. An ordinary day that will become extraordinary for all the wrong reasons. Sarah and Rebecca arrive at Murphy's Diner for their afternoon shift at 2 p.m., wearing matching blue uniforms with white aprons. The diner is busier than usual today. A regional sales meeting at the farm equipment dealership has brought in extra customers, and the high school dismissed early for teacher training, so teenagers are filling the booths and ordering burgers and milkshakes. The security camera at Murphy's, grainy, black and white, but preserved as evidence, captures the twins working their section. Sarah methodically fills salt shakers while Rebecca chats with the regulars at the counter, her warm smile putting everyone at ease. Everything is routine. Everything is normal. At 8:07 p.m., the twins clock out. They collect their tips, mostly 1s and 5s, maybe $30 between them, and wave goodbye to the night manager. "See you tomorrow," Sarah calls out. They'll never walk through Murphy's door again. The twins have a routine for getting home. They walk down Main Street, past the courthouse square with its war memorial and gazebo, then turn east onto Pine Street, 5 blocks to their neighborhood, 12 minutes door to door. They've made this walk hundreds of times at all hours, without incident. The route is well lit. It's familiar. It feels safe. That evening, witnesses see the twins stop at Henderson's pharmacy, just 2 blocks from their house. They're buying a birthday card for their mother, whose birthday is next week. Maria Martinez loves roses, so Sarah asks the clerk if they have any cards with roses on them. Judith Abernathy, working the register at Henderson's that night, becomes the last person to see Sarah and Rebecca Martinez alive. They seemed in good spirits, she'll tell investigators later. Nothing seemed wrong. Nothing seemed off. They found a card they liked, paid for it, and left around 8:30, heading east on Pine Street toward home. 12 minutes. That's all that stands between the Martinez twins and safety. 12 minutes they'll never complete. By 9:15 p.m., Maria Martinez is worried. Her daughters should have been home by now. She calls Murphy's Diner. The night manager confirms the girls left over an hour ago. By 10 p.m., Robert Martinez is in his car, driving the streets of Troy, looking for any sign of his daughters. Maybe they stopped at a friend's house. Maybe they had car trouble, though they were walking tonight. Maybe there's a simple explanation. But the streets are empty. The car is still parked at home. No one has seen them. At midnight, the Martinez family reports Sarah and Rebecca missing to the Pike County Sheriff's Department. The deputy who takes the call doesn't seem particularly concerned. 2 adult women missing for a few hours. They probably met up with friends. Maybe went to a late movie. These things usually resolve themselves by morning. Come back if they're not home by tomorrow, the deputy tells Robert Martinez. But tomorrow comes, and the twins' beds remain empty, untouched. The birthday card for their mother sits on the counter at Henderson's pharmacy, never delivered. By noon on October 18th, panic has set in. The Martinez family's fear has infected the entire community. Friends, neighbors, co-workers, everyone converges on the Martinez home, offering support, organizing search parties, trying to help in any way they can. The sheriff's department, now recognizing the seriousness of the situation, begins a formal investigation. They interview witnesses, trace the twins' last known movements, canvass the route between Murphy's Diner and the Martinez home. Volunteers pour into the streets. They search every inch of the walking route. They check abandoned buildings, drainage ditches, wooded areas on the outskirts of town. The local radio station interrupts programming with updates and appeals for information. It was unlike anything I'd seen before, recalls Troy resident Margaret Simmons. Everyone dropped what they were doing to help search. Men called in sick to work. Women brought food to the volunteers. The high school football game was postponed. Finding those girls became the only thing that mattered. By the 3rd day, the FBI has joined the investigation. Federal agents interview the twins' friends, co-workers, acquaintances. They examine the sisters' bedroom, looking for any clue, any hint of where they might have gone. Everything is exactly as they left it. Savings passbooks in the dresser drawers containing every dollar they've saved for their futures. Jewelry boxes undisturbed, clothing neatly hung in the closet, school yearbooks on the shelf, Rebecca's guitar propped in the corner. The only thing missing is Sarah's silver locket, the one she wore every single day, the one her grandmother gave her before she passed away. The most puzzling aspect of the entire case is the complete absence of evidence. No signs of struggle along the walking route. No witnesses reporting suspicious vehicles in the area that evening. No screams heard. No disturbances noted. The twins have simply vanished, as if they were plucked from the earth and carried away, leaving no trace behind. My girls wouldn't run away, Robert Martinez tells reporters, his voice breaking with emotion. They wouldn't leave their mother. They wouldn't abandon their family. Something happened to them, and someone knows what it is. As days turn to weeks, the search continues, but hope begins to fade. Posters with the twins' photographs appear in store windows throughout Pike County and neighboring counties. Their smiling faces stare out from the front page of the Troy Messenger newspaper for 7 consecutive days. A local record. Parents use their story to warn children about walking alone after dark. Anniversary articles will appear in the local paper every October. The Martinez family will continue their private search, never giving up, never surrendering hope. But the official investigation, it's about to hit a wall that will stand for 45 years. If you're finding this story as compelling as I do, please take a moment to leave a comment below. Let me know where you're watching from and what you think about cold cases like this one. Your engagement helps the crime records community grow and ensures these stories continue to be told. The Pike County Sheriff's Department in 1974 is simply not equipped for a case of this magnitude. They have 11 deputies. 11. To cover the entire county. Their experience is largely limited to routine matters, traffic violations, domestic disputes, the occasional bar fight or property crime, missing persons cases, especially ones with no obvious leads. This is completely outside their wheelhouse. Sheriff Walter Donovan, a 3-term incumbent known more for his political connections than his investigative prowess, suddenly finds himself in a national spotlight. Reporters from Montgomery, from Birmingham, even from Atlanta and beyond descend on Troy, all wanting updates on the Martinez twins. "We're pursuing all available leads," becomes Donovan's standard response at the daily press briefings he's now required to hold. But former deputies will later admit the truth. The investigation lacks both direction and expertise during those crucial early days. The first 48 hours yield almost nothing in terms of physical evidence. Deputies canvass the route between Murphy's Diner and the Martinez home, finding nothing more suspicious than a discarded hair ribbon near the corner of Pine and Elm Streets. The ribbon is blue with white polka dots. Initially, investigators think it might belong to one of the twins, but it's later determined to have no connection to the case at all. Just a random piece of trash on a street corner. Without a crime scene, investigators focus on establishing a timeline and identifying potential witnesses. And this effort does produce the case's first significant lead. 3 separate witnesses report seeing a blue pickup truck idling near Henderson's Pharmacy around 8:30 p.m. on October 17th. An elderly man walking his dog. A teenage couple sitting on a nearby porch. The night janitor at First Baptist Church. All 3 mention the same vehicle, a mid-1960s model Ford pickup blue with a dented right fender. None of the witnesses can clearly identify the driver, though the teenage boy thinks it might have been a man wearing a cap. This blue truck becomes the investigation's primary focus. Authorities compile a list of every blue Ford pickup registered in Pike County and surrounding areas. 127 vehicles. Deputies begin the painstaking process of locating each truck, interviewing owners, checking for signs of recent cleaning or damage repair. It's tedious work, but it's all they have. The truck's owner is identified 8 days after the disappearance. James Whitley, 42 years old, mechanic at the Texaco station 2 blocks from Murphy's Diner. Whitley admits he was in the area that evening, but he vehemently denies any involvement with the twins' disappearance. "I was having engine trouble," he tells investigators. "The truck was overheating. I pulled over to let it cool down, then headed straight home. His wife backs up his story. She says he arrived home by 9 p.m. They watched television together, then went to bed. With no evidence to contradict his account and no legal grounds for a search warrant, investigators have no choice but to accept Whitley's explanation. He remains on their informal suspect list, but there's nothing concrete to pursue. As the weeks pass, 3 additional persons of interest emerge. First, Victor Ramirez, a 27-year-old distant cousin of the Martinez family, who'd visited from Arizona 2 weeks before the disappearance. According to some reports, Ramirez had shown romantic interest in Sarah, which she'd firmly rejected. He claims he returned to Phoenix 3 days before the twins vanished, a claim supposedly verified by his employer's time cards, though questions about those records will surface years later. Second, Thomas Blackwell, the 56-year-old owner of Blackwell Mining Company, which operates several coal mines in the area, including the one where Robert Martinez works. Anonymous tips suggest Blackwell had argued with Robert Martinez the week before the disappearance, allegedly over safety concerns Martinez had raised. Blackwell denies any connection to the case and has a solid alibi. He was at a business dinner in Birmingham the night of October 17th, confirmed by multiple witnesses. Third, Daniel Cooper, a 31-year-old former boyfriend of Rebecca Martinez. Their relationship ended 6 months earlier, reportedly on difficult terms. Cooper has no alibi for the night in question, but he cooperates fully with investigators. He even volunteers for a polygraph test, which he passes. No evidence links him to the disappearance. By early November, the investigation has stalled completely. The FBI, which initially provided significant resources and specialized expertise, begins scaling back its involvement. More pressing cases demand attention. Resources are finite, and without any concrete leads, there's only so much they can do. Local law. Enforcement continues following up on tips, but with diminishing returns. The fundamental problem is the lack of physical evidence. No crime scene means no fingerprints, no fibers, no blood evidence. Nothing that can point definitively to a suspect, or even confirm a crime has occurred. The twins' bedroom reveals nothing useful. Their personal belongings are undisturbed. The only notable absence is Sarah's silver locket, which she was wearing when she disappeared. Witness testimonies, initially promising, begin to fall apart as memories fade or are influenced by media coverage. The teenage couple who reported seeing the blue pickup later disagree about its exact location. Judith Abernathy, the pharmacy clerk, initially states the twins left around 8:30 p.m., but later says it might have been closer to 8:15. These discrepancies significantly impact the timeline and create confusion, rather than clarity. Even more problematic are the reported sightings that pour in from across the southeast. The Martinez twins are supposedly spotted at a gas station in Georgia, a bus terminal in Tennessee, a restaurant in Mississippi, a shopping mall in Florida. Each sighting diverts precious resources as investigators are obligated to follow up, and every single one leads nowhere. It's like chasing ghosts, one frustrated deputy tells a reporter off the record. Everyone wants to help, but half these sightings are just people's imaginations running wild. Someone sees 2 young women with dark hair and immediately thinks it's the Martinez twins. The case might have maintained momentum if not for what happens on December 3rd, 1974. The Harmon County bank robbery. 3 people dead. Over $200,000 missing. The largest heist in Alabama history at that time. Suddenly, every law enforcement resource in the region is redirected to the manhunt for the bank robbers. The Martinez case, with its lack of concrete leads and its seeming impossibility to solve, is quietly deprioritized. By Christmas 1974, the daily press briefings have stopped. The volunteer search parties have disbanded. The posters of Sarah and Rebecca Martinez begin to yellow and curl at the edges in store windows. The case isn't officially closed. It remains active on the books. But the intense investigative effort has wound down to occasional follow-ups on new tips. Tips that almost always lead nowhere. Several factors contribute to the case going cold. The limited forensic capabilities of the era mean that potentially crucial evidence goes uncollected or unanalyzed. The rural setting, with its vast areas of woodland and abandoned mining operations, makes comprehensive searches nearly impossible. The lack of security cameras along the twins' route home, with the exception of the single camera at Murphy's Diner, means there's no visual record of their movements after they left the pharmacy. Perhaps most significantly, the investigation suffers from tunnel vision. Focused intensely on the blue pickup truck and the initial persons of interest, investigators may overlook other possibilities. Later reviews of the case files will reveal that several potentially relevant reports were filed away without thorough follow-up, including one about an unfamiliar station wagon seen near the Martinez home that evening, and another about a mine employee who called in sick the day after the disappearance, then suddenly moved out of state 2 weeks later. As 1974 gives way to 1975, the disappearance of Sarah and Rebecca Martinez transitions from breaking news to unsolved mystery to local legend. Parents use their story to warn children. Anniversary articles appear in the local paper each October. The Martinez family continues their private search. But the official investigation? It's gone cold. And it will stay cold for 45 years. In the Martinez household, time stops on October 17th, 1974. The family calendar remains turned to that month for years. The day circled in red ink, a silent testament to the moment their world shattered into pieces that can never quite be reassembled. For Robert and Maria Martinez and their 2 younger children, Miguel and Lucia, life becomes divided into 2 distinct periods: before the disappearance and after. Robert Martinez has always been a man defined by quiet strength, but the disappearance of his daughters breaks something fundamental inside him. My father was the kind of man who fixed things, Miguel Martinez will recall decades later. If something broke, he'd repair it. If there was a problem, he'd solve it. That's who he was. When my sisters vanished, it was the first time I ever saw him face something he couldn't fix, and it nearly destroyed him. 3 weeks after Sarah and Rebecca disappear, Robert takes an indefinite leave of absence from his job at the mine. What begins as a temporary break to assist with the search becomes a permanent departure from his career. He sells the family's second car, he drains their modest savings, and he transforms the garage into something resembling a military command center. Maps of Pike County cover every inch of wall space. Red pins mark every location that's been searched. Blue pins indicate reported sightings. Yellow pins highlight areas still to be explored. Filing cabinets hold meticulously organized notes on every person interviewed, every lead followed, every dead end encountered. A dedicated phone line is installed, its number distributed on homemade flyers throughout Alabama and neighboring states. The line rings directly to this garage headquarters. Robert's routine becomes grueling, punishing. Mornings begin at dawn with physical searches of areas overlooked by official efforts. Abandoned buildings, remote creek beds, overgrown hunting trails. places where someone could hide, something or someone, and never be discovered. Afternoons are spent following up on tips, interviewing potential witnesses, coordinating with the network of volunteers who continue to assist long after official search parties have disbanded. Evenings are dedicated to updating his files, planning the next day's efforts, reading books about investigation techniques, trying to teach himself to think like a detective. He slept maybe 4 hours a night, Lucia Martinez recalls. Sometimes I'd wake up at 2 in the morning and find him at the kitchen table, studying maps or reading through witness statements for the 100th time. He was obsessed, but not in a bad way, in a father's way. He couldn't rest until he found his daughters. The physical toll is devastating. Robert's health deteriorates rapidly. Stress and exhaustion compound. By 1976, his hair has turned completely grey. By 1980, he's developed a serious heart condition that doctors attribute directly to chronic stress. Yet he refuses to slow down, refuses to accept defeat, driven by a father's unshakable determination to find his children, no matter the cost to himself. While Robert channels his grief into relentless action, Maria Martinez turns inward. She finds solace in faith, in prayer, in the unwavering belief that her daughters will return. A devout Catholic, Maria attends Mass every single day. She lights candles for Sarah and Rebecca. She spends hours on her knees praying for their safe return, begging God for just one more miracle. The family's living room becomes a shrine. Photographs of the twins at various ages are arranged around a central portrait, taken just months before they vanished. Their bright smiles frozen in time, forever young, forever happy, forever missing. Most poignant is Maria's evening ritual. Every night at 8:45 p.m., the approximate time the twins should have arrived home, Maria sets 2 places at the dinner table. Complete plates of food, silverware arranged just so, glasses filled with water. The food remains untouched until morning, when she clears it away, only to repeat the ritual the following evening. After setting the table, Maria sits by the front window watching the street, waiting, hoping that tonight will be the night her daughters walk through the door. She waits until midnight, sometimes later. My mother never said they were gone, Miguel explains. Not once in 45 years did those words cross her lips. She would say they were missing, or away, but never gone forever, never dead. She kept their bedroom exactly as they left it, clothes in the closet, books on the shelves, beds made with fresh sheets changed weekly, as if they might come home at any moment. This unwavering hope sustains Maria, but it also isolates her from much of the community. Well-meaning friends who suggest memorial services or other forms of closure are politely but firmly turned away. Invitations to social events go unanswered. Maria's world gradually contracts to the boundaries of her home, where she can maintain the belief that her daughters are still alive, still coming home. For Miguel and Lucia Martinez, 15 and 12 years old when their sisters disappeared, the aftermath brings a different kind of suffering. Overnight, they lose not only their siblings, but in many ways their parents as well. Dad was physically absent, Lucia recalls, always searching, always out there looking. Mum was emotionally absent, lost in her grief and hope. We had to grow up fast. We took care of ourselves and each other while trying to support our parents through something none of us understood. School becomes particularly challenging. In a small town where everyone knows their story, Miguel and Lucia face constant reminders of their family tragedy. Some classmates avoid them, uncomfortable, unsure what to say. Others ask invasive questions fueled by rumors and morbid curiosity. Teachers alternate between excessive leniency, not wanting to add to their burden, and concerned oversight, watching for signs of trauma or distress. Miguel responds by withdrawing socially. He focuses intensely on academics as an escape from his family's reality. By his senior year, he rarely speaks of his sisters. He throws himself into college applications with single-minded focus. He'll eventually leave Pike County for college in California. He'll return only for brief visits. The pain of being in Troy, surrounded by memories and unanswered questions, becomes too much to bear. Lucia takes a different path. She becomes her parents' emotional support, the family's public face. She attends the annual candlelight vigils that community members organize. She speaks to reporters on anniversaries. She maintains connections with the volunteer network that continues to search. After high school, she chooses to remain in Troy, taking classes at the local community college while living at home. I couldn't leave them, she explains simply. Someone had to remember that life had to go on, even while we kept searching. Someone had to hold the family together. The extended Martinez family, scattered across Arizona and New Mexico, provides financial support when possible. They make regular visits, especially during holidays. These visits bring temporary relief, but also painful reminders of what's been lost. Empty chairs at Thanksgiving dinner, missing faces in Christmas photographs, birthday celebrations for the twins held in absentia, year after year after year. Robert's brother Carlos moves to Troy in 1977, partly to help with the ongoing search, partly to provide his brother with the emotional support he desperately needs. Carlos takes over the mounting medical bills. He helps maintain the house when repairs are neglected. Robert would have searched until his dying breath, Carlos says, and Maria would have waited just as long. Their devotion to their daughters was both beautiful and heartbreaking to witness. I've never seen love like that. Pure, unbreakable, even in the face of impossible odds. As the years pass, 5, 10, 15, 20, the Martinez family's struggle becomes part of Pike County's collective identity. Their story is told to each new generation. Their unwavering commitment in the face of overwhelming odds earns them a unique place in the community's heart. Even those who privately believe the twins are long dead respect the family's refusal to surrender hope. The Martinez family becomes a symbol of love, of persistence, of a pain that never heals, only learns to coexist with daily life. If you're moved by this family's dedication, please consider subscribing to Crime Records and turning on notifications. These families deserve to have their stories told, and your support ensures these victims are never forgotten. Take a moment to hit that like button as well. It really does help. Pike County changes dramatically in the decades following the Martinez twins' disappearance. The sleepy, rural community of 1974 gradually gives way to suburban development as Montgomery's urban sprawl extends southward, like a slow-moving tide. By the 1990s, a new 4-lane highway connects Troy to the state capital. Chain stores arrive, fast food restaurants, housing developments with names like Meadowbrook Estates and Willow Creek Commons. The county's character alters forever. Murphy's Diner, where the Martinez twins work their final shift, closes in 1986. The building becomes a video rental store, then a tanning salon. Eventually, a cell phone retailer. Each business lasts a few years, then fails, then is replaced by another. Henderson's Pharmacy, where Judith Abernathy sold the twins their mother's birthday card, is absorbed by a national drugstore chain. The personal service and familiar faces give way to corporate efficiency and rotating staff who know nothing of the building's history. The courthouse square, once the vibrant center of community life, struggles to compete with a shopping mall built on the outskirts of town in 1992. Blackwell Mining Company ceases operations in 1983 amid falling coal prices and mounting safety concerns. The mines that provided livelihoods for generations of Pike County residents, including Robert Martinez, are sealed and abandoned. Nature slowly reclaims them. Vegetation covers the scars on the landscape. Within a decade, you can barely tell the mines were ever there. Through all these changes, the Martinez case remains an unhealed wound in the community's psyche. Each transformation of the physical landscape seems to erase another potential clue, another connection to that October night in 1974. Every time they tore down an old building or paved over a field, I wondered if we were destroying evidence, says Calvin Brooks, the former deputy who was among the first responders when the twins were reported missing. The town was moving on, building its future, but the case was standing still, frozen in the past. The investigation isn't entirely dormant during these decades. Every 5 years, like clockwork, media attention resurfaces around the anniversary of the disappearance. Local television stations run retrospectives. The newspaper publishes updated stories. These periodic spotlights typically generate new tips. Most prove fruitless, but occasionally something substantial enough emerges to warrant renewed investigation. In 1979, the case receives its first major review when Sheriff Donovan loses his re-election bid to Raymond Tucker, a former state trooper who campaigned on a promise to solve the county's most notorious cold case. Tucker assembles a task force. They spend 6 months re-examining evidence, re-interviewing witnesses, pursuing leads that were overlooked or insufficiently investigated the first time around. Their efforts yield a new person of interest, a former carnival worker with a history of violence against women who had been passing through Pike County in October 1974. For a brief moment, it seems like the breakthrough has finally arrived. But the suspect dies in a prison altercation in Georgia before investigators can question him. Another dead end. The 1980s bring advances in investigative techniques that prompt another review. In 1984, FBI profilers create a psychological assessment of the likely perpetrator. They suggest the twins' disappearance was probably the work of someone familiar with the area, someone who had specifically targeted the sisters rather than committing a crime of opportunity. This profile narrows the focus to local residents with connections to the Martinez family or Murphy's Diner. But it produces no breakthrough, no arrests, just more questions without answers. The advent of DNA analysis in criminal investigation sparks renewed hope in 1994. Sheriff's Department officials announce they'll re-examine physical evidence using these revolutionary new techniques. Evidence that was meaningless in 1974 might now hold the key to solving the case. But there's a problem. The limited evidence collected in 1974 was improperly stored. Most samples have degraded beyond usefulness. The hair ribbon found near the twins' walking route is confirmed through DNA testing to have no connection to either sister. Cold cases are always challenging, explains Detective Margaret Lawson, who led the 1994 review. But this one was particularly difficult. We had no crime scene, minimal physical evidence, and witnesses whose memories had been clouded by 20 years of time and media coverage. We were essentially starting from scratch, 2 decades after the fact. The new millennium brings fresh eyes to the case. The Alabama Bureau of Investigation establishes a cold case unit in 2002. The Martinez disappearance is among the first files reviewed. Investigators digitize the original case notes. They create computer models of possible scenarios. They establish a dedicated tip line with 24-hour monitoring. For a brief period, it seems like modern technology might finally break the case open. The most promising lead comes in 2008. Construction workers, preparing to build a new subdivision on the outskirts of Troy, uncover what appears to be human remains. The Martinez family holds its collective breath for 3 agonizing days while forensic anthropologists examine the bones. But the remains are determined to be Native American, dating back several centuries. Not the Martinez twins. Another crushing disappointment. By the 2010s, the case has taken on an almost mythical quality in Pike County. Younger residents grow up hearing about the Martinez twins without any personal connection to the events. The story has become folklore, legend, part of the town's dark history. Urban legends sprout around the disappearance, tales of ghostly twin figures seen walking along Pine Street on autumn evenings, mysterious voices heard near the sealed mine entrances, the kinds of stories teenagers tell each other to frighten and thrill. For the Martinez family, however, there's nothing mythical about their continued suffering. Robert's health declines steadily. Multiple heart attacks in 2005 and 2012 leave him increasingly frail. He uses a wheelchair more often than not, but his mind remains sharp and his determination never wavers. Maria's unwavering hope never dims, though her ritual of setting places at the dinner table eventually reduces to special occasions only. Birthdays, holidays, the anniversary of the disappearance. Miguel establishes a successful engineering career in California. He marries, has children, builds a life far from Pike County and its painful memories. His visits home become less frequent as the years pass. Only Lucia remains in Troy, serving as caretaker for her aging parents, while maintaining the family's modest efforts to keep the case alive, in public memory. And then, in October 2019, everything changes. A routine call to an abandoned mine, a curious deputy, a discovery that will finally, after 45 years, bring answers. But the answers, when they come, will be more disturbing than anyone imagined. October 12th, 2019, a crisp autumn Saturday. The kind of day that feels almost identical to that October evening 45 years earlier when Sarah and Rebecca Martinez vanished. Deputy Marcus Tanner isn't thinking about the Martinez case as he responds to reports of teenagers trespassing at the abandoned Blackwood mine. At 32 years old, Tanner is too young to remember the original disappearance. To him, it's just another local legend. One of those stories everyone in town knows but nobody really thinks about anymore. The Blackwood mine has been officially closed since 1983. Its entrances are supposedly sealed with concrete barriers and chain-link fencing. But decades of neglect have done their work. Nature has reclaimed much of the area. And determined trespassers, usually local teenagers looking for thrills, have found ways to access the tunnels beneath. It's become something of a rite of passage for Pike County kids. Venture into the mines, entrance chamber, leave your mark, graffiti, empty beverage containers, proof you were brave enough to go inside. Tanner expects another routine call. He'll issue warnings. Maybe confiscate some alcohol. Send the kids home with a stern lecture about the dangers of abandoned mines and the legal consequences of trespassing. What he finds instead changes everything. I noticed something odd about one of the side tunnels, Tanner will later testify. There was a barrier that looked different from the others, not old concrete like the main entrance ceiling, but a wall of rocks and timber that didn't match the surrounding area. It looked deliberately constructed, not a natural collapse. His instincts tell him something isn't right. Tanner uses his flashlight to examine the barrier more closely. The beam catches something between the rocks. Fabric, weathered and discolored, but unmistakably man-made. He calls for backup. Then, carefully, methodically, he begins removing stones from the barrier. The first stone, the second, the third, and then he sees them. 2 sets of human remains, positioned side by side in a small alcove carved into the tunnel wall, deliberately arranged, not carelessly dumped. Their skeletal hands appear to have been placed together, fingers interlaced. Fragments of clothing still cling to the bones. Blue fabric, white trim. The unmistakable remnants of Murphy's diner uniforms. And there, partially buried in the disturbed soil, glinting in the beam of his flashlight, a tarnished silver locket. Tanner leans closer. The initials on the locket are still visible. SM Sarah Martinez. I knew immediately what I'd found, Tanner says. Everyone who grows up in Pike County knows about the Martinez twins. Their pictures are in the Historical Society Museum. The story gets told to every generation. Finding them, it was like coming face to face with history, with the town's greatest tragedy. Within hours, the abandoned mine entrance is transformed into the most significant crime scene in Pike County history. The Sheriff's Department arrives, the Alabama Bureau of Investigation, the FBI. Multiple agencies establish a joint task force with unprecedented speed. Yellow crime scene tape cordons off a massive area. News vans begin arriving from Montgomery, Birmingham, Atlanta. Word spreads through Troy like wildfire. After 45 years, the Martinez twins have been found. Recovering the remains proves extraordinarily challenging. The mine's structural integrity is questionable after decades of abandonment. Before any evidence can be collected, structural engineers must reinforce the tunnels to prevent collapse. The process takes days. A team of forensic anthropologists from the University of Alabama takes charge of the excavation. Every movement is documented, every bone photographed in situ before being moved. Every fabric fragment, every soil sample, every potential piece of evidence is meticulously collected. This isn't just about recovering remains. It's about finding answers after 45 years. About bringing closure to a family that has never stopped searching. About finally solving Pike County's most notorious cold case. And it's about identifying whoever did this. The first question investigators need to answer: why was this section of the mine not searched in 1974? The answer comes from historical mining records. The section where the remains were found had been part of an expansion project that was abandoned in early 1974 due to safety concerns. According to company documents, that particular tunnel was officially sealed in March 1974. 7 months before the Martinez twins disappeared. On company maps, on official records, that tunnel didn't exist anymore. It was sealed, inaccessible, off-limits, which is exactly why searchers in 1974 didn't check it. Someone with knowledge of the mine's layout would have known about this. Hidden space, explains FBI Special Agent Diana Reeves, who joins the investigation. They would have known it was sealed off on official maps, but still physically accessible if you knew how to get there. This wasn't random. This was someone who understood the mine's geography intimately. This revelation immediately narrows the suspect pool. Whoever hid the Martinez twins in this remote section of the Blackwood mine had to be familiar with the mine's operations. A former employee, a contractor, someone with specialized knowledge, someone local. The forensic examination of the remains yields the next critical breakthrough. Advanced DNA analysis confirms what the silver locket already suggested. The remains are indeed those of Sarah and Rebecca Martinez, but it's the manner of death that provides investigators with their most significant clue. Both sisters suffered similar fractures to the skull, blunt force trauma. The medical examiner determines these injuries were the likely cause of death, inflicted by a heavy object with a flat striking surface, possibly a hammer, possibly a wrench, something industrial. More importantly, microscopic analysis of the bone fractures indicates the fatal blows were delivered from behind. The twins were attacked from behind. Unexpectedly. They never saw it coming. The positioning of the remains told us something crucial, explains Dr. Eleanor Simmons, the forensic anthropologist who leads the examination. They weren't simply dumped in the mine like trash. They were deliberately arranged side by side, almost as if they were lying in repose. Their hands were placed together, fingers interlaced. This suggests the perpetrator knew them personally. There was a level of care in how they were positioned that you don't typically see in stranger cases. This was personal. But the most crucial evidence comes from technology that simply didn't exist in 1974. Soil samples collected from around the remains contain microscopic fibers and trace elements that modern forensic techniques can analyze with extraordinary precision. Blue cotton fibers matched the twins' Murphy's Diner uniforms perfectly. This confirms they were brought to the mine directly after their disappearance. They were still wearing their work uniforms. They never made it home to change. Pollen analysis indicates an autumn deposition consistent with their October disappearance. But it's the presence of a specific type of industrial lubricant that provides the breakthrough investigators need. This lubricant was used exclusively by Blackwell Mining for their equipment in the 1970s. It contained a unique chemical signature because the company used a proprietary formula. No other mining operation used this exact composition. More importantly, access to this lubricant was restricted. Only specific personnel had access to it, primarily maintenance workers, equipment operators, people who worked in the mines every day. Investigators cross-reference employment records from 1974 with the list of persons of interest from the original investigation. And a name emerges, a name that appeared only briefly, almost as a footnote, in the initial case files. Howard Keller. In 1974, Keller worked as a maintenance supervisor at Blackwell Mining. He was responsible for equipment repairs, tunnel safety inspections. He had access to every part of the mine, including sections that were officially sealed. He was 35 years old when the Martinez twins disappeared. He was interviewed briefly during the original investigation as part of the routine canvassing of mine employees who knew Robert Martinez, but nothing in that interview flagged him as suspicious. He said he was home with his wife the night of the disappearance. His wife confirmed his alibi. The investigation moved on. But now, 45 years later, investigators dig deeper into Howard Keller's background. And what they discover is chilling. Keller had been questioned in connection with the disappearance of a young woman in Tennessee in 1969. Never charged, just questioned. The case was never solved. He had been arrested for assault in Mississippi in 1971. The charges were dropped when the victim refused to testify. And most significantly, Keller had been a regular customer at Murphy's Diner in 1974. He often sat in the section served by the Martinez twins. Former employees tracked down and re-interviewed in 2019 recall that Keller showed particular interest in Sarah Martinez. He would ask about her schedule, try to engage her in conversation, make comments about her appearance, attention that Sarah politely but firmly rejected. The picture that emerged was of a man with an unhealthy fixation on Sarah Martinez. Agent Reeves says, when she rejected his advances, that rejection, combined with his documented history of violence toward women, likely triggered the attack. This wasn't random. This was personal, and it had been building for some time. The net is closing around Howard Keller, but he's had 45 years to believe he got away with it. 45 years walking the streets of Troy as a free man. That's about to end. Drop a comment below if you think cold cases deserve more resources and attention. Every case matters, no matter how much time has passed. And please, take a moment to hit that like button. It helps more than you know. Howard Keller has lived in Pike County for his entire adult life. In 2019, he's 80 years old, long retired, living in the same modest ranch house on Maple Street that he purchased in 1973. The house is just 6 blocks from where the Martinez family lived. 6 blocks. For 45 years, he's been that close. His lawn is always meticulously maintained, not a blade of grass out of place. Edges trimmed with military precision. His garbage containers are brought in promptly after collection. His holiday decorations are displayed each December with geometric perfection. To his neighbors, Howard Keller is the quintessential quiet elderly widower. His wife Elaine passed away from cancer in 2001. Since then, he's lived alone, keeping to himself, maintaining his property, bothering no one. He attends First Baptist Church most Sundays. He volunteers occasionally at the local food bank. He's known to repair appliances for neighbors at no charge, refusing payment, saying he's just happy to help. His only apparent quirk is his intense privacy. He rarely invites anyone into his home. He declines most social invitations with polite but firm refusals. But that's not so unusual for an elderly widower, is it? People respect his need for solitude. He was just part of the background of the town, says Eleanor Wilkins, who lived across the street from Keller for over 30 years. The kind of neighbor who waves from the driveway but doesn't stop to chat. Nothing about him ever raised any red flags. He seemed perfectly normal, perfectly harmless. But Howard Keller has been hiding in plain sight for 45 years. Walking the same streets where people search desperately for Sarah and Rebecca Martinez, shopping at the same stores, attending the same church services, participating in the community that their disappearance traumatized, carrying his terrible secret every single day. The arrest comes at dawn on October 25th, 2019. 13 days after Deputy Tanner's discovery at the Blackwood mine, a tactical team from the Alabama Bureau of Investigation surrounds Keller's home while he sleeps. The street fills with unmarked vehicles. Officers in tactical gear take positions. A bullhorn breaks the morning silence. Howard Keller, this is the Alabama Bureau of Investigation. Come out with your hands visible. Neighbors emerge from their homes, drawn by the commotion. They watch in stunned disbelief as the elderly man shuffles out in his bathrobe, hands raised, blinking in the harsh glare of spotlights. Officers secure him, place him in an unmarked vehicle, and just like that, Howard Keller's 45-year secret is over. By noon, news of the arrest has spread throughout Pike County like wildfire. Sheriff James Wilson holds a press conference at 3 p.m. Flanked by FBI representatives and the district attorney, he confirms what many still find impossible to believe. Howard Keller has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of Sarah and Rebecca Martinez. The community's reaction is immediate and visceral. It was like a collective gut punch, describes Troy Messenger editor Patricia Simmons. Everyone had their theories about the Martinez case over the years. Drifters passing through town, serial offenders. Some people even had supernatural explanations. But no one, and I mean no one, imagined it could be someone who'd been among us all along. Someone who'd taught children. Someone who'd volunteered at community events. Someone who seemed so completely ordinary. The arrest sparks painful self-examination throughout Pike County. How did Keller avoid suspicion for nearly half a century? Why did no one connect the dots? How could a killer live among them for 45 years without anyone knowing? The answers reveal both the limitations of 1970s investigative techniques and the disturbing truth about how dangerous individuals can blend seamlessly into their communities. In 1974, Howard Keller presented as the ideal witness. He had an alibi. His wife Elaine confirmed he was home the night of the disappearance. They'd watched television together, gone to bed at their usual time. Nothing unusual. Investigators, overwhelmed with leads and lacking the resources to thoroughly verify every alibi, accepted this statement at face value and moved on. What they couldn't have known, what no one knew, was the truth about Elaine Keller's life behind closed doors. During the search of Keller's home in 2019, investigators find journals hidden in the attic. Journals belonging to Elaine, spanning decades. In entry after entry, she documents her private torment, her husband's controlling behavior, his violent outbursts, his threats, the fear that permeated every day of her life, and most critically, the truth about October 17th, 1974. Howard Keller was not home that night. He came home very late, after midnight, with scratches on his arms and dirt under his fingernails. His clothes smelled like the mines. When Elaine asked where he'd been, he grabbed her by the throat and told her to forget the question. To tell anyone who asked that he'd been home all evening. She lied to investigators out of terror, out of the absolute certainty that her husband would kill her if she told the truth. "I carry the weight of my silence," she wrote in a 2000 entry shortly before her cancer diagnosis. "2 young women are gone because I was too afraid to speak. Their mother waits by the window while I live with the monster who took her daughters. God forgive me. I don't know if I can forgive myself." Elaine Keller never found the courage to come forward during her lifetime. The fear her husband instilled in her was that complete, that paralyzing. But her hidden journals become crucial evidence against him after her death. Her words from beyond the grave finally speak. The truth she couldn't voice while alive. Keller's employment at Blackwell Mining provided both motive and opportunity. As a maintenance supervisor, he had unrestricted access to all areas of the mine, including the tunnel that was officially sealed but still physically accessible. The tunnel where he would hide the Martinez twins' bodies. His work schedule from October 1974 shows he conducted a safety inspection of that very section of the mine on October 18th, the day after the twins disappeared. The perfect opportunity to conceal what he'd done. Most disturbing is the evidence that Keller continued to insert himself into the case over the years. Records show he attended multiple candlelight vigils for the Martinez twins. In one photograph from the Troy Messenger archives, dated October 1979, the 5th anniversary of the disappearance, Keller can be seen standing in the background of the memorial service, standing among the mourners, among the people whose lives he'd destroyed, hiding in plain sight. Former colleagues remember him discussing the case occasionally, always expressing sympathy for the family, always suggesting the investigation was looking in the wrong places. He would say things like, "They'll never find those girls looking where they're looking," recalls Frank Dawson, who worked with Keller at the high school years later. "We all thought he was just speculating, playing armchair detective like everyone else in town did. No one imagined he was practically confessing, that he knew exactly where they were because he'd put them there." The search of Keller's home yields physical evidence that seals his fate. In a locked metal box in his garage, investigators find a silver charm. It matches the design of Sarah Martinez's locket perfectly. DNA analysis confirms microscopic blood residue on the charm belongs to Sarah. Also in the box is a blue hair ribbon, identical to the ribbons the twins often wore. This one contains strands of hair that DNA testing confirms belong to Rebecca Martinez. Trophies, souvenirs, kept hidden for 45 years. Most incriminating is a maintenance log from Blackwell Mining, apparently stolen from company records. The log documents the sealing of the tunnel in March 1974. Keller has annotated the margins with handwritten calculations, measurements of depth, notes about accessibility, as if he was identifying this location as a potential hiding place months before the actual murders. Premeditation, planning. This wasn't a crime of passion or opportunity. This was calculated. But the forensic evidence that provides the final, irrefutable link comes from an unexpected source. The blue Ford pickup truck that witnesses reported seeing near Henderson's pharmacy the night of the disappearance. The truck that belonged to James Whitley, who'd been questioned and cleared. Except investigators in 2019 discover that truck had previously belonged to Howard Keller. He'd sold it to Whitley in early 1975, just months after the Martinez twins disappeared. The truck changes hands several times over the decades, eventually ends up owned by a collector of vintage vehicles in Georgia. When investigators track it down and forensic technicians examine it using modern chemical analysis techniques, they discover microscopic traces of blood, hidden deep in crevices beneath the passenger seat upholstery frame. Blood that DNA testing confirms belongs to both Sarah and Rebecca Martinez. The twins were transported in Keller's truck after the attack, likely unconscious or already deceased. Placed on the passenger side floorboard, which explains why no witnesses reported seeing them in the vehicle. The evidence is overwhelming, undeniable. Howard Keller murdered Sarah and Rebecca Martinez, hid their bodies in the Blackwood mine, then went on living his life for 45 years as if nothing had happened. For the Martinez family, the arrest brings a complex storm of emotions. Robert Martinez, now 87 years old and in failing health, is wheeled into the courtroom for Keller's arraignment. He locks eyes with his daughter's killer for the first time. Keller shows no emotion, no remorse, no recognition of the devastation he's caused. Maria Martinez, 85 years old, refuses to attend the arraignment. Through her daughter Lucia, she states simply, "I cannot bear to be in the same room as the person who took my girls." Miguel Martinez flies in from California, returning to Pike County for the first time in years, facing the community he left behind, the pain he tried to escape. In a brief statement to the press, he expresses gratitude to Deputy Tanner for his discovery, gratitude to the forensic teams for their diligence and dedication. But he also notes, there is no arrest, no conviction, no punishment that can restore what was taken from us. Justice delayed this long is justice diminished. We'll never get back the 45 years we spent searching. We'll never get back the lives Sarah and Rebecca should have lived. If this story has moved you, please take a moment to share this video. The more people who learn about cases like this, the more likely it is that other cold cases will receive the attention and resources they deserve. The trial of Howard Keller begins in March 2020. The timing is extraordinary. The world is on the brink of a global health crisis. Within weeks, courtrooms across the country will shut down. Trials will be postponed indefinitely. But Pike County officials are determined to move forward without delay. The Martinez family has waited 45 years. They've waited long enough. Court proceedings are modified with safety precautions, social distancing measures, limited attendance, but the trial moves forward. The prosecution presents a methodical, overwhelming case. They build a timeline connecting Howard Keller to the twins' disappearance through both physical evidence and witness testimony. The case is meticulous, detailed, damning. Former employees of Murphy's Diner testify about Keller's frequent visits to the restaurant, his particular interest in Sarah Martinez, the way he would ask about her schedule, try to engage her in conversation, make comments about her appearance that crossed the line from friendly to inappropriate. Sarah had rebuffed his advances, politely but firmly, made it clear she wasn't interested. For Howard Keller, that rejection was unacceptable. Forensic experts take the stand. They explain in painstaking detail how modern technology revealed evidence that was impossible to detect. In 1974, the industrial lubricant found in soil samples from the mine, the microscopic blood traces in the truck, the DNA analysis of the hair strands and blood residue on the trophies Keller kept hidden in his garage. The evidence is scientific, irrefutable, overwhelming. Elaine Keller's journals are entered into evidence. Her words, written over decades, paint a picture of a woman living in fear, of a husband capable of violence, of a lie she maintained out of terror for her own life. The defense recognizes they're fighting a losing battle. With the evidence against their client being so overwhelming, they focus primarily on mitigation, on Keller's age, his health. They argue that prison would be unnecessarily harsh for an 80-year-old man, that he's unlikely to survive long behind bars. It's a weak argument, and everyone in the courtroom knows it. Throughout the trial, Howard Keller remains stoic, emotionless. He shows no visible reaction even when confronted with the most damning evidence. No remorse, no shame, no acknowledgement of the lives he destroyed. He declines to testify in his own defense, exercises his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. When given the opportunity to make a statement before sentencing, he offers nothing, just shakes his head slightly and looks down at the table. The jury deliberates for just 6 hours. When they return to the courtroom, the verdict is unanimous. Guilty on both counts of first-degree murder. Judge Eleanor Simmons addresses the courtroom before pronouncing sentence. No passage of time diminishes the gravity of this offense, she states, her voice firm and clear. 2 promising young lives were cut short. 2 families were shattered. A community lost its sense of security and spent 45 years living with unanswered questions and unresolved grief. The defendant showed no mercy to his victims. He showed no remorse for his actions. He lived freely while his victim's mother waited by the window every night, hoping for their return. Judge Simmons sentences Howard Keller to 2 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. She notes that while his advanced age means he'll likely die in prison regardless of the sentence structure, the consecutive terms symbolically acknowledge the separate, individual value of each young life he took. Sarah Martinez was a person, Judge Simmons says. Rebecca Martinez was a person. They each had dreams, hopes, futures that were stolen from them. This sentence recognizes that truth. For the Martinez family, the conviction brings closure. But closure isn't the same as comfort. "We're grateful for justice," Lucia Martinez tells reporters after the sentencing. "But justice doesn't bring my sisters back. It doesn't give my parents back the 45 years they spent searching. It doesn't undo the pain. It's an ending, but not a happy one." Robert Martinez, who dedicated his entire life to finding his daughters, lives just long enough to see their killer brought to justice. He attends the sentencing in a wheelchair, his health failing, but his mind still sharp. He hears the judge pronounce the sentence, sees Howard Keller led away in handcuffs. 2 weeks later, Robert Martinez passes away peacefully in his sleep. His family says he finally found peace, that he'd fulfilled his promise to Sarah and Rebecca, that he could rest now, knowing the truth had been revealed and justice had been served. Maria Martinez, upon hearing the guilty verdict, makes a decision she's put off for 45 years. She finally allows her daughter's bedroom to be packed up, the clothes they would never wear again, the books they would never finish reading, the dreams they would never fulfill, all carefully preserved for 4.5 decades. Most items are donated to a women's shelter in Troy. Maria keeps only a few treasured photographs, and Rebecca's guitar, which now hangs on the living room wall. Maria no longer sits by the window every evening, waiting, but she sits there sometimes remembering, mourning the daughters who never came home, celebrating the lives they lived, however briefly. Miguel and Lucia Martinez establish a foundation in their sisters' names. The Sarah and Rebecca Martinez Foundation is dedicated to supporting cold case investigations across Alabama. It provides grants for advanced forensic testing, offers specialized training for rural law enforcement agencies, ensures that other families might find answers sooner than the Martinez family did. If our family's suffering can prevent even one other family from going through what we went through, Lucia explains, then something good will have come from this tragedy. The Martinez case has become a template for cold case investigations nationwide. Law enforcement agencies study how modern technology, applied to properly preserved evidence, can solve crimes decades after they occur. The case is now included in FBI training materials. It's taught in forensic science courses at universities. It highlights both the investigative failures of the past and the persistent determination that eventually brought resolution. In Pike County, the case has transformed community awareness. A volunteer citizens group now works with local law enforcement to maintain a database of unsolved crimes and missing persons cases. They ensure these cases aren't forgotten, that families know someone is still looking for answers. Annual training sessions teach residents to be more observant neighbors, to report suspicious behavior regardless of who's involved, to understand that dangerous people don't always look dangerous, that predators can hide in plain sight. Howard Keller dies in prison in January 2022. He's 83 years old. He served less than 2 years of his sentence. He never expresses remorse, never offers an explanation, never provides the Martinez family with answers to their lingering questions about that October night in 1974. Why did he target Sarah and Rebecca? Was it truly just rejected attraction, or was there something more? Did he plan it for months, or was it an impulse that spiraled out of control? What were the twins' final moments like? These questions die with Howard Keller. The full truth remains buried. But even in his silence, even with unanswered questions remaining, justice was served. The Martinez twins were found. Their killer was identified, arrested, convicted. Their family finally received the answers they'd sought for 45 years. The Martinez case stands as a powerful reminder that justice can prevail even after decades of silence. It demonstrates the critical importance of preserving evidence, even when a case seems unsolvable. Technology advances, techniques improve. What's impossible to analyze today might be simple tomorrow. It showcases the value of persistent investigation, of refusing to give up, of treating cold cases not as lost causes but as opportunities for justice delayed but not denied. It reveals the remarkable capabilities of modern forensic science, DNA analysis, chemical detection at microscopic levels, technologies that didn't exist when Sarah and Rebecca disappeared but ultimately solved their case. But perhaps most importantly, the Martinez case honors the memory of two young women whose lives were stolen and a family who never gave up hope. Sarah Martinez dreamed of becoming a nurse, of helping people, of making a difference in her community. Rebecca Martinez dreamed of moving to Nashville, of pursuing music, of sharing her gift with the world. They deserved to live those dreams. They deserved long lives filled with love and laughter and achievement. Instead, their lives were cut brutally short by a man who couldn't accept rejection, who viewed them not as human beings with their own agency and autonomy, but as objects for his obsession. The Martinez family deserved answers sooner. They deserved not to spend 45 years searching, not to spend 4.5 decades living in limbo, not knowing whether their daughters were alive or dead, suffering or at peace. The community of Pike County deserved closure that didn't take nearly half a century to arrive. They deserved not to live with suspicion and fear, wondering if a killer walked among them. Yet their story also showcases the best of humanity, the dedication of investigators like Deputy Marcus Tanner, who trusted his instincts and made the discovery that broke the case open, the persistence of law, enforcement officials who refused to let the case die, who reviewed it every few years, who applied new technologies as they became available, the technological advances that finally gave voice to victims who couldn't speak for themselves. And most of all, the unwavering love of a family who never stopped searching, who never surrendered hope, who dedicated their lives to finding Sarah and Rebecca. Robert Martinez transformed his garage into a command center and searched until his dying day. Maria Martinez set places at the dinner table for 45 years, believing her daughters would come home. Miguel and Lucia Martinez grew up in the shadow of tragedy, but built meaningful lives and created a foundation to help others. Their love never wavered. Their determination never faltered. That kind of love, that kind of persistence, that kind of unbreakable family bond, that's what ultimately brought justice for Sarah and Rebecca Martinez. If this story has impacted you, I want to ask you to do 3 things. First, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for crime records. We're committed to bringing stories like this one to light, to ensuring victims aren't forgotten, to honoring families who never give up. Every subscription helps us continue this important work. Second, hit that like button. It seems like a small thing, but it makes a real difference in helping this video reach more people. The more people who hear these stories, the more awareness we build about cold cases and the need for continued investigation. Third, drop a comment below. Tell me what cold case you think deserves more attention. Share your thoughts on this case. Let me know where you're watching from. Building this community of people who care about justice, who believe every case matters, who understand that families deserve answers, that's what makes this work meaningful. Every unsolved case represents a family still waiting, still hoping, still searching for the closure that finally came to the Martinez family after nearly half a century. Justice delayed is not justice denied. It just takes dedication, persistence, and refusing to give up. Thank you for watching this episode of Crime Records. Until next time, remember that every victim deserves justice, every family deserves answers, and every case deserves to be remembered.